Some days ago, a guy asked me for an interview to talk about the events that happened during the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix and the battle between Verstappen and Hamilton. I accept that interview. I invite you to listen it because I think it's very interesting.
Hello and welcome to this interview. My name is Ashish Bolju and I'm here with Danny Lozano, and who is a F1 YouTuber who makes F1 documentaries. We'll be discussing some of the topics and decisions that could have led to the controversy of the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. So let's get into it. First off, how are you, Danny?
Well, very well. Ready for your questions and to discuss about it.
Yeah,
So let's check it.
cool. Let's get into it. So the first round of questions are going to be to do with the radio communications between the FIA and F1 teams during the 2021 season. In the 2021 season, radio communications between the FIA and F1 teams were broadcasted. What was your initial reaction to this idea?
The initial reaction was for me was good because it's open. It's an attempt to open the communications to the spectators, and my first thought was that it was a good decision for me as a F1 fan, as a spectator, to see or to listen more info during the races about the decisions FIA are taking, about drivers, about racing situation. For me, it was very positive thing they did.
And did it help the sport to be more entertaining, would you say?
Um, yes, I think yes, because at the end of the day, it's more information. There are more insights the spectators can listen or see during the broadcasting transmission. So at the end, it's another ingredient to the show. So for me, I think it was more entertaining adding these radio communications.
Uh, why do you think it might have failed and was abandoned for the next season in 2022?
Well, that's complex, but I think that happened because of the last race of the previous season in 21 in Abu Dhabi. That was a very polemic race where the championship would decide in the final lap with polemic decisions about the race director that was Michael Masi at that time, uh, letting through the lap cars in the last lap, and that produced Verstappen could attack Hamilton, and at the end, I think all polemic that happened during that final race and the possibility all spectators were able to listen these communications, I think for FIA at the end of the day was not so good to be involved in so big polemic. And I think that they thought it could be happen again in the future, and they decided to ban this possibility. If, from my point of view, that was the reason.
Would you have abandoned it for the next season, even though those things did happen?
In my, if I will have the power
Yeah,
to do it,
yeah.
it's difficult because I have to put myself in the position of the race directors and FIA people, and I don't know. Probably yes, because at the end of the day, I have to care of my business or my organization that is FIA, and if the polemic is so big that it's affecting to the way the people is perceiving my, let's say, my what I'm doing, it can be negative in the future. So probably I will do the same. Yes.
Um, was it influential to the events of the 2021 season? And maybe could you give some examples?
Do you mean this if to open the communication affecting the champions in some way
Yeah,
in
yeah.
2021? Phew, I don't know really. I have to think no. I have to think no because I believe in the competition, in fair competition, and I have to think that if radio communications will not be open, the decisions taken will be the same. I
Yeah.
have to think in that way. So I would say it has not influential point in the 2021 season. but it's something that is difficult to respond,
To pinpoint, yeah. If this wasn't introduced, if this didn't exist or didn't happen, these ready communications, if they weren't broadcasted, would it have ended in the same way, do you think?
Again, it's difficult to say. I don't know really. Again, I have to think that the ended will be the same, but it was so polemic, and people involved at that time in the race director room, they knew that they were being recorded as well. They were well listened by millions of fans. I try to put myself in that position, and I have to think that affect in some way, because you are being listened by millions of people in that moment. But by the other hand, I had to think that the race director was very professional, and in some way he was not affected by these decisions, and he tried to take the best decision for that moment. But as I said, it's very difficult to judge, very, very, very difficult. But I have to think it will be ended in the same way.
So similar events prior to the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Do you think the handling of previous battles between Hamilton and Verstappen during the season foreshadowed the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix that we saw? And what I mean
Uh,
by foreshadow is like, did it kind of like tell us that something like this could happen?
yeah, considering the previous battles they had
Yeah.
and the crashes. Um, um, I think it affects. It affects because at the end of the day, it's more ingredients you put in the polemic battle between them, because they crash a lot of times before Abu Dhabi. I think in Imola, in Monza, in Silverstone as well, they crash. So I think that context that they crashed multiple times before to the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix add much more drama and much more polemic behind and underneath these final events in Abu Dhabi. And yeah, obviously, if it will not happen, it will be polemic anyway, because the end of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix was probably the most controversial one of the F1 history. But it helped to even add more drama to the ending of this Grand Prix. So yes, I think yes.
Uh, were the FIA inconsistent in previous situations between Hamilton and Verstappen during the 2021 season? For example, the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix and where they had a little DRS, playing DRS chicken in a way, and then the British Grand Prix where Hamilton took his normal line or same line or different line, racing line, and then collided with Verstappen. Do you think they were inconsistent with these decisions or incidents?
Difficult question. Probably, but in both sides. I mean, probably in Silverstone could be the penalty that received Hamilton. If I'm reminding now, it was 10 seconds time penalty, I think, something like
I
that
believe
was
it was 10 or 20 seconds or
10,
something.
20
Yeah.
seconds. And at the end, he won the race anyway, and he put away his main title contender Verstappen out. 10 seconds was enough for that crash. We saw previous examples for similar actions that were penalized much more severely. But by the other hand, the events that happened in Saudi Arabia were so many and so polemic that probably, yes, in some way I think it was unfair. But for both drivers at some point of the season it was unfair. Sometimes for Verstappen and sometimes for Hamilton. I think at the end of the season was balanced, and the championship was for Verstappen. But I had to say that was very, very, very difficult to judge, because it happened so many things between them in almost every race, polemic decisions, polemic maneuvers, that yeah, I think when you have so many factors and so many polemic actions every race, it's impossible to be consistent. in the way the penalties are applied. So yeah, in some way it were inconsistent, but at the end of the day, I think all around was balanced, more or less.
Um, did maybe could you say like the FIA influenced the results of the 2021 season? You know, for example, before Abu Dhabi 2021, they went into that Grand Prix on the same exactly the same points. Could you say that they influenced this?
What was your example about what about Abu Dhabi?
So did the FIA influence the results of the 2021 season? Because going into the last race, they were they were on the same. They were on Hamilton and Verstappen were on the same points,
Yeah.
and even on the last on the in lap of the Grand Prix, or on the last lap, Hamilton did say on the team radio, he said this has been manufactured, or manipulated. Uh, do you believe that the FIA did influence the 2021 season?
In general, um, obviously, yes, it was influential, but what I mentioned before, sometimes in some way, sometimes in another way, sometimes in favor of a driver, sometimes in favor of the other driver. The way that end the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix was weird, was strange, I have to say. I understand Lewis that when he said that it was manipulated because it was an strange decision. That's obvious because it was what happened these 5 laps under safety car was something that I think we never seen before in the way the decisions were taken and the way decisions were changing during these 5 laps under safety cars. So obviously, I will not say manipulated because I believe FIA don't want to have a championship manipulated. Is the last thing that they want to do. But the way that were resolved the actions in Abu Dhabi, obviously from the Lewis Hamilton perspective or from the Mercedes perspective, they can think that it was manipulated, but for the way it happened, things. But I don't think FIA won't manipulate the competition in any way.
And moving on to the final few questions, were all of these decisions, considering all that we've discussed so far, were these decisions taken to make the sport more entertaining overall?
About radio communications, broadcasting.
Radio communications, the discussions of having races finish on the red flag, on the green flag conditions. Um, do you think all of these, decisions and meetings were taken to make the sport more entertaining?
Um, uh, Depend, I think, of the people. From my perspective, I don't need this to feel that it's more entertaining because at the end of the day, what makes entertain a sport is what happen on track, but with the drivers, not with the decisions that are taken in the FIN room, or maybe to finish races under green flag. Yeah, for the spectator, it's much more entertaining. Obviously, I can understand that. But at the end of the day, for me, as a Formula One fan, what makes entertaining Formula One is when the drivers are racing wheel to wheel. From my perspective, I don't need these decisions, these rules, to feel that F1 is more entertaining.
And after the Grand Prix, after the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, do you do you think then was the integrity of the sport damaged because of these decisions?
Maybe a bit, because some part of the story that affect to Lewis Hamilton, that was the driver who lost the championship, for all fans that follows Lewis or all fans that follows Mercedes, they could feel damaged in some way as a fans, or to feel they were manipulated. not intentionally, but for the way the decisions were taken. So yeah, I can understand the sport was a bit damaged, and I think that's why the radio communications between FIA and teams were not broadcasting from 2022 onwards.
And what do you think was the main reason that led to the controversy of Abu Dhabi 2021?
The main reason, the inconsistency in the decisions taken. These final laps were, at some point, first we thought Max Verstappen would not be able to lap these cars to put his car in front of Hamilton before the release, before the green flag, the restart of the race. And some minutes later, FIA took a different decision. So the main reason was this inconsistency in the decisions. That it's at the end what will lead to this polemic, and the reason why this race will be remembered forever for a very bad reason.
Yeah, and that is the end of the interview. Thank you so much for your time, Danny.
Nice. Thank you for having me, and I hope my responses helps to you.
Yeah, it's been really helpful. Thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed this interview. It was nice to discuss about it. If you would like to know a bit more what I'm doing here on social media with my F1 documentaries and video edits, I recommend you to check my main YouTube channel that will be on this card. And if you already know me, I strongly recommend you to subscribe to this channel where I share tips and my experience as a video editor, as an F1 content creator. So thanks for watching, see you soon in the next video. Bye bye.